to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Okay, no time to waste here. Let's get right to it. Yesterday afternoon, I had a discussion with some amazing Canadian patriots up north by the names of Stacy and Damian. And Stacy is in charge of fedsforfreedom.ca. And it's an excellent website, and you need to check it out. I highly recommend it, in particular, again, if you're in Canada. But I'm going to read the About section of the website here, and it says the following. It says, quote, I'm a Canadian federal government employee for the Department of National Defense. I've started this site/movement to fight against the proposal of federally mandated vaccines for all federal employees and federally mandated sector employees. This movement is in its inception. Information will be made available as soon as I can. Procure, verify, and post it. And then there's a federal petition here, or federal petition information, and it says, federal petition, a federal election has just been called. The House of Commons e-petition system now states, quote, dissolution of Parliament temporarily closes the e-petition system and causes all e-petitions not yet presented to the House to be withdrawn. Active content of the petitions site should be reactivated approximately 3 weeks after the election. And then she says, once Parliament is sitting, I will be registering a petition for our fight. Until such time, I will be posting facts, information, links, and usable forms to help with the fight. She is also on Facebook as well, Telegram, and I believe they're also on Gab. And they will be talking again more about what's going on in Canada from their perspective on a variety of issues. You need to listen to this entire episode because, again, they are fully aware of the war that's taking place here. And it is certainly a world war. And again, many of us know this. Unfortunately, some people are just acquiescing and falling into line, but these individuals are not, nor am I, and nor are the listeners of this podcast. I'm certain of it. So give your ear here to Stacy and Damian and give a listen as to what's going on from the Canadian perspective. And again, I hope to have them back in the future. And please check out their website, fedsforfreedom.ca. Lots of useful information there, lots of legal information as well. Same thing with an open forum there for discussion on a variety of issues. So make sure and check that out. Give this a listen. Share this wherever you can. And I'll catch you on Friday.
My name is Stacy Payne. I'm a federal public servant for the Department of National Defense in Canada, obviously.
Damian, and I'm a union plumber, and I'm also a YouTuber. So a little bit of everything going on here. That's pretty much it.
Very good. Go ahead and again tell us a little bit about the current state of affairs here in Canada and what's been going on recently.
So I'll start off with kind of like a general overview, and then I'll hand it over to Stacy because Stacy's a little bit more intertwined with the current vaccine mandate on federal employees. So in general, right now in Canada, the state of affairs is pretty grim, if I'm being honest. The inflation has hit hard. The virus is getting, so I say that in quotations, it's getting, again, more prevalent, allegedly, the Delta variant. There's rumors now of lockdowns again. And they're pushing really hard for everyone to get vaccinated. The province we live in Ontario, has just introduced a vaccine passport. And pretty much every other province is going to follow suit. I think BC and Quebec already have them as well, and it's just going to get more and more, I guess, tyrannical from there. And I also will apologize in advance for being just brash and upfront. When it comes to this stuff, I really don't have a filter because it's so just maddening.
You don't need a filter on this podcast. Say whatever the hell you want.
Okay, perfect. So that's kind of the state of affairs. The election, I can't remember if I mentioned the election. The way our governing system works up here is we have a prime minister. Obviously, I mean, most people know that, but some of your other listeners might not. We have a prime minister, and he has a minority government right now, which essentially means he doesn't have control of the House, so he can't pass laws without pretty much all the other parties signing off on it. Anyways, he decided to call an election, which has caused a little bit more turmoil. there's massive protests at basically every campaign stop our prime minister has. And actually, I just saw this morning. It's turning a little bit more ugly. He was getting on his campaign bus, and someone whipped a handful of gravel at him. So it is getting more aggressive, and I guess the divisiveness of the vaxxed versus unvaxxed is really, really coming to a head. I mean, we go into a Walmart, we go into a grocery store, like we don't wear masks anymore. And the looks that we get from people, and I'm not talking about looks like this, looks of disappointment. I mean, the looks of pure and utter hatred that we get. It's honest to God, it's actually quite scary at times, because we're walking through there, and there are people looking at us that the look in their eyes is, we want to kill you. That's the look we're getting. And and the vaccine, any talk of that, I mean, if anyone up here has the slightest inkling to just not toe the line of what the government is saying, you're automatically labeled a conspiracy theorist, you're automatically labeled a racist, people don't want to do business with you, and it's become very, very unpleasant to live here. So I guess that's kind of a very, like a Reader's Digest condensed notes version of the state of affairs up here. So I'll turn it over to Stacy, who is, like I said earlier, a little more in line with the mandate on federal employees and that sort of thing.
So I'll start off by saying I am not a doctor or a lawyer. I am a graphic designer for the federal government. So when this all started, our website, the Department of National Defense website, stated that vaccine mandates were illegal in Canada and they would not be put into effect. After the Prime Minister made an announcement on August 13th, stating that he would be mandating these vaccines federal employee-wide, along with any sector of government that was under the umbrella of federal regulations, so truck drivers, any transportation, things like that, they would also be included in this mandate. Now, when you go back to the DND website, it states that as per an announcement, they will be requiring a mandate. Well, I don't know if any announcement has ever been a legal law, but I don't believe so. So they're operating very closed-door-ish, to say the least. In 1996, Canada erected an immunization act that states no matter what, Canada cannot allow mandated vaccines because of our Charter of Rights and Freedom, which is similar to your Constitution. Now, we had
minus the good stuff. We don't have a Second Amendment, and I wish we did.
Yeah. So, what was I going to say? Before our Charter of Rights and Freedom was signed in 1982, we had some original rights and freedoms, and those original rights and freedoms cannot be infringed upon with Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which states essentially that if there is an emergency in Canada, the government can override any of our Charter and Rights and Freedoms. But that is not, in fact, true. They cannot override laws that were here before the current Charter was signed. So essentially, they're breaking all of the laws and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and no one's questioning them about it. Whenever anyone asks a simple question, they're getting shut down.
Or just not answered. So we had a...
So I work. I'm on the safety committee and have been on the safety committee for the past 2 years. I've redeveloped it from scratch, almost by myself. So I am very intertwined with the safety of my profession and my unit. I also have an HR department which deals with my contracts, and then I have my union. So I questioned all three entities about this mandate. So far, none of them have been able to give me answers. D&D has nothing. My HR department has absolutely nothing. And the funny thing is, I know instances in the past where these Department of National Defense contracts or any public service contract is so tightly developed that they can almost not fire you for any reason. There was a story I heard of a gentleman who was very bad at his job. He wasn't performing at all. They tried to get him fired. They couldn't do anything to get him fired because it is illegal. You can't just fire someone with no cause. The way they were able to get rid of this gentleman in the long run is he tried to burn down his wife's house. And that's how they were able to fire him, because he committed a felony, So these contracts that we sign are rock solid, and nowhere did I say that the government could decide what I put in my body. They can't drug test me. They can't even accuse me of going to work drunk. They have, if I was to go to work, accused of it. So there's a lot of things the government is lying about or misleading the public. That is very, very bad at this point in time. And they just keep saying, well, it's a mandate. It's a mandate. A mandate is a law. Mandates are close. And what they're doing is they're creating this mandate at and other government entities carry out their bidding, which is absolutely ridiculous, because they know if they actually created a law, it wouldn't go through because of our Charter of Rights and Freedom. So we're a little bit at a standstill right now until we have a government again. Because, he announced that he was going to put this mandate in for all federal companies and all federally regulated companies. And then he called an election. And so during the time of the election, when he called the election until the government is back in, we can't do anything because there is no government. There's no one sitting in our house. So he threatened us, and then he left, got everyone into the house, and then they're not going to be back in until the 20th or probably the 21st or 22nd, depending on how long vote counting takes. And then after that, they said they want us to have these vaccines right away, October 1st. Well, how are you going to create a policy with your new government and go through the proper legislative requirements of creating a new law with less than a week? It makes absolutely no sense. And now him of the Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau, and Jagmeet Singh of the NDP party are threatening public service employees, saying, if you don't do this, we'll use your collective agreement against you. We'll use, it's called progressive disciplinary action in our collective agreement. Well, that's if I show up late. That's if I'm not doing my job. That's if I'm not performing properly. That has nothing to do with me having a personal medical decision made and being informed about it and declining it. So they're just using scare tactics to get anything done. And it's very, very obvious that that's what they're doing, unfortunately.
Well, they're using scare tactics, and it's for two reasons. It's one, because the Canadian populace as a whole hasn't really lived an uncomfortable life for a really, really long time. And they've gotten, to be honest, men have gotten soft. And this movement, I mean, we were at a protest a couple weeks ago in Ottawa, and it was over half women there. It was like 70 to 80% women.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that women are leading the charge, and the men are just so soft. But then the other reason they're making these mandates, and it's obvious because they know it won't pass in Parliament. And our Prime Minister has, since COVID started, he's just not been in the House of Commons debating anything. He's had 6-week breaks at a time from government even happening, and then miraculously they managed to get in the House of Commons to pass an order in council last year to miraculously ban guns. I know it's not the topic that we're discussing, but it just shows the level of corruption and the level of deceit and lying that's going on by our federal government.
So he's using the emergency section 1 of our Charter and Rights and Freedom to then invoke more laws that have nothing to do with the emergency of COVID onto our citizens. So that's kind of what Damian's saying. He's using this little scapegoat in the charter to do whatever he would like with no ramifications to our laws.
Yeah, like every law has to be debated in the House. It has to go through due process. The Senate has to review it. I mean, it's a timely process. And he's just circumventing all of that for all of these ridiculous and complete violations of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And the scariest part is that people are just letting it happen. that's what's actually absolutely terrifying, is that people are allowing this nonsense to happen and not standing up for it. People are, I talk to a lot of people and they say, well, I have to keep my job so I'll get this vaccine. Well, no, don't do that. Stop it. Because if you cave in, then everyone else is expected to cave in.
Yeah.
And then the people who don't cave in and actually hold their ground, they're the ones who are labeled assholes.
So I created a group. As soon as I heard on the news that this was happening, I had a couple of employees walk in my office and, rub it in my face, I'll say, that I was going to have to get the vaccine. I left work that day very upset and went home and said, I need to change this. I need to do something about this. I can't be the only one who feels this way. So that's when I started Feds for Freedom. You can check me out at fedsforfreedom.ca. I've got Telegram groups and I've got a channel. I've got a Facebook page. Within 2 weeks of me starting this group, I have 2,000 members. Not all federal employees, as other people are just mandated by their union. And what we do with our union will set precedents for the rest of the unions in Canada. So I'm trying to get as much support from any union member right now to get this moving along. But we've saw a lot of traction on people in the private sector bringing notices of liability to their bosses and putting it back on the business owners, bringing them a sheet saying, okay, if you're going to mandate this or fire me, then you're liable for anything that happens to me because of this vaccine. And as soon as they do that, a lot of people are getting told, oh, no, it's okay, you don't have to get it, and they're getting exemptions. So as soon as you throw the ball back in your bosses or your manager's court and tell them, okay, then you're going to pay me if I get hurt, they kind of back off because they realize it's absolutely unheard of and ridiculous.
And there's actually no science to back it up either.
Correct.
I mean, it's like we're in the Twilight Zone almost. It's so surreal how it's the same. I'll use the analogy of two people are walking down the road and it's pouring rain in a thunderstorm, and one person has an umbrella open and the other person doesn't. And the person who has the umbrella open says to the person who doesn't, well, you need to open your umbrella so mine works better. That's the kind of stupidity that we are dealing with at all levels of the populace. And it's absolutely mind-blowing because, number one, it's an experiment at the very best. It's not a vaccine. Number two, when you look at the science behind it and what's allegedly in it, it's quite toxic for you. And how people are lining up for this and then calling me an idiot because I don't want to get it and die. That's what makes it feel like it's in the Twilight Zone. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Let me interject real quick here. First of all, there's no topic that's off limits or quote unquote unrelated. It's all related.
Right.
Let me give you the American perspective real quick, just on a couple of brief topics. Number one, there's a number of exemption forms that exist here in the States that a number of different individuals are using, depending on their working environment. One of the more effective ones that I've seen is one that's asking their employers to fill out what they know about the jabs and what they know and what they know about the harmful effects. And are they, like you said earlier, are they going to pay the employee compensation if the jab ends up hurting them in one way or another? Ultimately, it's one blank line after another, or a section of blank lines for a paragraph for the employer to fill in and then ultimately sign off on it, which of course they aren't doing. And they're not they're not doing it because they can't. I mean, they'd be signing off on their own illegality, and then of course it's a legal document in itself, and that creates a massive problem for them too. So earlier in our email exchanges, we were talking about the business of exemption forms, and you have a take on the exemption forms, which I don't want to mess this up, so I'll let you explain it, but I think it had something to do with that you don't recommend that people fill out exemption forms. Is that right?
Yes, okay. So the Constitutional Justice Center in Canada, which is a law firm with Rocco Galati, he is doing multiple lawsuits right now. He has a lawsuit against the BC government for their vaccine passports. He He has a lawsuit against the government of Canada for the police, any police members, and then he has a federal lawsuit for any federal employees against the government of Canada. So he has directed anyone who is involved in the lawsuit to not provide an exemption letter or get any PCR or antigen tests, because if you cooperate with these two mandates and you give an exemption letter, he states that it gives a perception that you're okay with these mandates. And you're okay with it, you just don't want it. So we're trying to say that we're not okay with it at all. So he's directed us not to provide any exemption letters, not to quit our jobs, not to do any PCR testing or antigen testing. I believe that was the main ones that we have to abide by. And then, go ahead.
If I can springboard off of that for a second, see, our government is so corrupt that a lot of the exemption forms aren't even being honored. I mean, they ruled religious exemption. I believe they ruled our religious exemption rights completely off the table. We're not even allowed to do that. And if I remember correctly, the only way we can get an actual exemption form for the vaccine is if we can show we are allergic to one of the ingredients in it, or if we have a bad allergic reaction to dose 1.
Yes, and that is for the vaccine passport in Ontario. So the Ontario government has said no religious exemptions will be allowed, only those two exemptions Damian stated. So that means in a couple days, I guess, on September 22nd, Damian and I will no longer be able to go to restaurants, we'll no longer be able to go to movie theaters, we'll be no longer able to go to any concerts or hockey games or anything. I've already heard of doctors not allowing their patients to come in and be treated if they are unvaccinated, which is completely illegal. I pay my taxes. I go to work every day. I deserve health care. As you may know, our health care is, I'll say, included in Canada to a certain extent.
Kind of.
But, so we pay our taxes, we should get health care. End of story. No matter what disease you have. It's like telling a smoker who smoked for 50 years, knowing that they're going to get lung cancer, that you can't have any cancer treatment now, even though you knew that it could get you sick.
Yeah.
And it makes absolutely no sense. So we're not going to be attending those places anymore. However, there is a very large group of businesses gathering on Facebook right now. It's called Ontario Businesses Against the Health Pass. And all local businesses, big chain restaurants, things like that, that are allowing anyone to come in after that mandate is in place and showing that they are not okay with the government's decisions. So I hope that page grows more. I hope more businesses go on there. But we'll see.
A lot of the businesses, though, and I'm not pissing all over it, I'm just saying a lot of the businesses are, let's say, boutique things like a photographer. Yep. Okay, that's great. I love that you're on board, but it doesn't really help the situation.
Day to day.
You know, and it's that, and I mean, again, it's the thought, and it's knowing that we aren't alone.
Yeah.
We aren't the only crazy ones. And we can delve right into the United Nations and how they're planning this and how this isn't really about the virus, it's about the vaccine and about getting control of the population. And I would assume most people who are listening to this podcast already have a slight inkling that it's maybe not about the virus. But
they're fully aware.
Okay, that's good.
I'm certain of that. In fact, let me interject one more time real quick. You brought up the Second Amendment, and I know that this is one of those things that has been commented on in the past by numerous individuals regarding Americans and why are there not more Americans marching in the streets and what the hell is wrong with Americans, get off the couch, XYZ. The thing is this, we have more guns in our country today than we did a year ago. Every family who owned one gun now has at least probably 4 per person. So we are 100% ready to use them. We are fine with using them, and the government here knows that, and the government where you are knows that also. So I would encourage any Canadian to understand that we are ready to rock and roll. And the fact is that in the future, We, of course, would encourage our Canadian friends up north to have a Second Amendment for this exact reason. That any government installation going forward had better have something like this in place.
Well, when this is all over, and at the end of and I've said this too, like, I mean, the group of people we talk to about this particular topic, we are well aware that we are likely, and I mean highly likely, not going to be able to vote our way out of this because the corruption runs so deep, and it is the thing. We are prepared to use them because, I mean, I love my country. I just hate what it's become under consecutive years of corrupt politicians running it. And, you know, our gun ownership, that's part of the reason they rushed this gun ban in last year was because they knew what was going to happen. And Canadians per capita, if I could be mistaken here, but of gun owner populations in the world, Canadians own the most guns of the legal gun owners in Canada, because when you find a gun person in Canada, they generally really, really like them. And they have multiple. So, and that's, I believe, why they push for this so bad, because it does fall into Agenda 21. It does fall into Agenda 2030, because if you have an armed population, it's a lot harder to control them. So, yeah, in the next government, in the next era of this country, whenever it is that these assholes end up hanging from a rope, we will have gun rights in our country again, if it comes to that point.
Yeah. And to loop back around, so they've all enacted these vaccine passports to keep us out of lockdowns. They keep saying it's to keep our small businesses open, it's to keep us out of lockdowns and stay-at-home orders. Yet there are already rumblings of the fourth wave and the fourth lockdown. So my question to the Canadian government is, if we made it through lockdown 1, 2, and 3, and wave 1, 2, and 3 with hardly any vaccines administered, we did not overrun our hospital system, then now, with I think it's about 68% of Canadians are fully vaccinated.
You've seen it around there, yeah.
Now that we have 68% of our citizens fully vaccinated, how the heck are we going to overrun our hospitals this time if the vaccine actually works? We should not be talking about lockdowns at all. It should be off the table. But no, they're doing double up to try and take us away. And I'm sure you've seen what's going on in Australia, and we just fear that those exact things are going to happen here, because we're both Commonwealth countries. We're both very similar in the way our laws work and the way our Charter of Rights and Freedoms work, and it's slowly happening here, but people aren't awake enough to see it.
It's death by 1,000 cuts.
You got it.
That's how they're going about this entire operation. It's death by 1,000, or let's call it death by 1,000 concessions, because it started with all you got to do is wear a mask. All you got to do is wear a mask, wash your hands, you'll be fine. And then it went to, okay, now we have 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we have to lock everything down. And that 2 weeks to flatten the curve was almost 2 years ago. And I'm still hunting for the top of this curve. I'm still looking for the curve to begin with, to be honest. Because we had just, you would think, if there was, I get fired up about this, so I apologize. You would think that if there was a real pandemic happening, we wouldn't need roads or signs on the side of our highways telling us there's a pandemic going on. You would hear ambulances going up and down the road.
You would see dead bodies on the road.
You would see corpses like you did with the Spanish flu, but it's just not happening.
They also wouldn't be threatening our healthcare workers to lose their jobs if they do not get the jab. If we were in an actual pandemic, they would not be threatening those workers at all, because we need them in our hospitals to keep going, for them to keep being the heroes they've been for the last 20 months. So in 2020 in Canada, 15,000 people died of COVID. In 2020 in Canada, also approximately 77,000 people died of heart disease. You know, another, I think it was about 80,000 people died of cancerous tumors. I don't know about heart disease is a little bit easier to fix than cancerous tumors, obviously. But even influenza in Canada comes in at about number 6 or 7, with a 0.02% chance of dying of influenza in Canada. Well, COVID's not that far off of that number. COVID's 0.07% in Canada right now with our numbers. So I bet you if you put COVID in the chart of deaths in Canada, it would only sit at about number 5 compared to all of the other reasons. I think even accidental death is about 44,000 people. They want to talk about being safe and helping people. Well, help stop accidents, make the roads safer.
Do something about the drug problem.
Yes.
There's a huge fentanyl problem in Western Canada, and people are dropping dead from that left and right. There's not a lick of information. The government doesn't seem to care. But because there's money to be made, because there's control to be had, they see this as an opportunity to seize control. And as you know, and as Americans well understand, once a governing body has control, it's very difficult to get it back. And that's what's happening here. And if Australia is a case study, if that's a symbol of what's to come in Canada, because I have a feeling we will be next based on the language and rumors that are coming out of Ottawa and
other sources.
Yeah, let's call them that. We are going to be next to go towards what Australia's happening. And I'll say this about Australia. It's a good thing they gave up all their guns down there, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, that's an interesting point, and there's a couple other things I wanted to ask you about too, but let's focus on that for just a minute too. The listeners of my podcast, I don't know if I've mentioned this particular story or not, but 2 years ago I was in Australia, in Queensland on the Gold Coast, giving a presentation, and one of the more interesting conversations I had with a person was in the airport. And I met this guy on the way back as we were flying back, as I was flying back, and we were in, I think, at least 2 separate airports, one in the Gold Coast and then one in Sydney, and then before we flew to Hawaii and then ultimately Los Angeles again. And he was clearly a socialist, but he was an older guy, and he was polite and he had common sense. And I remember him he had, I think his son lives in Alabama, and so he was going there to play golf and hang out with him. And he started saying things like, "So what is it with you Americans and all your guns?" And I said, "So you don't understand the history of the founding of our country and why our forefathers allowed us to have, set up the Second Amendment?" And he says, "I just don't understand why you need guns." And I said, "It's to fight government. That's the point." And he just looked at us. I mean, he just looked at he looked at me and he said, "Well, why would you ever need to know that, or why would you ever need to do that?" And I immediately thought to myself, this guy has no idea what's coming. And this was in 2019. And again, I was reading about and consistently talking about how, eventually they're going to make a play here. These governments are going to make a play where the shit's going to hit the fan. And there's going to be no escaping this unless certain things, some dramatic stuff occurs, because there's only so much that they can slow roll their evil plans before eventually they end up pulling the trigger on something. He even commented on the glorious nature of their socialist healthcare plan, and then he jokingly laughed about how he had colon cancer and it took him 6 months to get treatment, but at least it was all free.
Oh my gosh!
And I said to him, and he started laughing. He said, "I'm glad I lived that 6 months, but at least it was all free." And I thought to myself, you don't get it. I mean, this is a guy that was married to government, and now look what's happened to their entire country. It's beyond a nightmare. But let me ask you about the hospital workers and the healthcare workers, and if you can gauge the percentage of healthcare workers that have taken the jabs from your standpoint.
That's a hard one, as well, obviously we don't work in the sector. I would say it's a pretty high percentage.
It's over half.
I would go even upwards of 75 to 80% of the healthcare workers have just gone ahead and got it because our government is advertising it as safe and effective. And a lot of people in Canada have never questioned the government, and that's because they've never seen the intertwined dealings of the backdoor things that they do. But unfortunately, I think many healthcare workers have got it, and it's only the 20% that are saying no that are causing disruption at this point in time. for their plan.
Is anyone there talking about how if you have half to 70% upwards of your healthcare employees jabbed, then come this coming winter and the following winter, they're going to be dropping like flies, and you're not going to have people there to actually help anybody?
Damien, myself, and Damian's parents have been talking about that, but it's not, you see, it's not, putting quotations, okay to talk about these things in public. A lot of the people we're talking to about these things and having normal conversations, questioning our government, have to be done in back rooms with the doors closed, because if not, we're perceived as lunatics, and it's conspiracy theorists, and it's pretty sad to see that we can't ask a question without looking crazy. It doesn't make much sense to me, considering I got my hands on the clinical trials that were submitted to the Canadian government, and it said we did not, all of them said we did not test on pregnant or breastfeeding women. So we have no idea of the efficacy or the safety of this. But the government immediately came out and stated all pregnant women should be vaccinated, period, end of story. It's safe and effective. Well, those pregnant women who all got vaccinated in Canada and the breastfeeding women, they were all part of a clinical trial at that point because they had no data. They had no safety and efficacy statistics to go along with it. And they were being told that it was safe and effective. Well, on what science, I ask you? And I had a friend of mine say I was spreading misinformation, so I found these clinical trials and proved to it. And then she went on and found more information stating that it has been causing miscarriages, has been affecting women's reproductive cycles. Damien and I don't have kids yet. That is one of my pushing factors. I am not taking it. I do not know what it will do to my body. I have other health concerns and issues already. I don't need that on top of it. And it's pretty sad to see that everyone is just taking our government as their word.
Yeah, like we get shunned, basically. I mean, we might as well just go outside with a big armband on that says unvaccinated, because that's what it's coming to. And like Stacy said, you know, if you try and broach the subject, and I'm not talking about going in guns a-blazing saying, you're a freaking idiot, you got to wake up. I mean, just having a general conversation with someone, talking about maybe they didn't test. How about maybe the fact that it's not safe? Even asking someone the simple question of, don't you think the government who's getting paid by the pharmaceutical companies has something to gain by pushing these vaccines? And don't you think the pharmaceutical companies have something to gain by selling these vaccines? Even if you ask those questions, you're labeled a lunatic.
So I suppose there's no talk of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine going on there. Is that right?
We're conspiracy theorists.
I got told not to take horse drugs, and I'm a silly person. I said, obviously you have no idea what you're talking about, because there is a human version of it approved by Health Canada in our register. Obviously, I've been following the Canadian COVID Care Alliance, which is the same as the Frontline COVID Care Alliance in America, the same entity. And of course, they've been putting out, you know, what to do without the vaccine. So that was one of my most recent articles on my website, was alternative methods of prevention through to long-haul recovery without the vaccine. And people just don't know. They see these news articles, oh, it's a horse drug. Well, there is also a human version of it.
Yeah.
But they don't take the time to do the research, and they just label me a lunatic.
Because the media, so I'll give you a little insight into how our media operates here. We have something called the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Just like the British have the BBC. I can't remember what that stands for, but something like that. Probably British Broadcasting Corporation. Anyways, our government, Justin Trudeau, thought it would be a really good idea to give the CBC, I think this was 2 years ago, $600 million
a year
in order to operate. So then people don't even acknowledge that, and then they take the information, the quote-unquote information from the CBC and preach it as gospel. And that is what is so irritating, because they don't have the capacity to open up the blinders and look at, okay, maybe there's something nefarious going on here. And that's it's just ridiculous.
Do what you can to speak about the educational environment there as well, whether it be K-12 schools or university settings, and what's going on there. I received, just very quickly, an email from another Canadian who was describing the university where one of their family members was attending as a student. But they were describing again how at their university all of the students are walking around wearing the exact same mask, that they're not even allowed to wear different masks or whatever. And of course they're useless, and we all know that. But they've actually gone to the communistic step of having them all look exactly the same. And they basically said it just looks like an absolute nightmare if you're driving through the campus or walking around at all. They also mentioned something about border travel, and they said that apparently Americans can come into Canada without being jabbed, but Canadians cannot leave and come to America across the border, even if they drive, unless they have a passport.
Yes. Okay. So the education in the 1980s in Canada, in 3 provinces, I believe it is Ontario, New Brunswick, and I want to say Quebec. I can be wrong about that third province. They enacted standardized immunizations for public school, which is kindergarten, about 4 years old, up to 12. So I think you're about 17. And to go to Ontario public schools, I believe in Catholic schools, you need to have this set of immunizations. Now, there's always been in Ontario an exemption form that you could fill out for your child with no cause. You don't need to state your religion. You don't need to state the reason why you are not getting your children vaccinated. You just fill it out, sign it, send it back in. Done. End of story. I believe it's still working right now. They have said that they do want to add the COVID-19 immunization to that list of required vaccines, but that will take some time, of course. So they're just going to use these false band-aids until then. Currently, I believe masking is mandatory for our children and students, unless you can provide an exemption, which again is ridiculous. As for university students, I would say about 80% of the universities currently are saying you must have the vaccine to attend classes on campus or be in the residences, like the dorm rooms. So that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, there is a group of professors fighting against this because they realize they will now have to do online learning, and they do not want to do that. So out of the goodness of their heart of not wanting to do more work, they're going against it, which is great.
It's a very corrupt system.
Very much so.
There's a general theme in Canada with anything run by the government is incredibly corrupt.
Yes.
And it goes all the way down to kids. I mean, our public school system is actually telling 3-year-old boys it's okay to chop off your dick and become a woman. Like, that's the kind of stupidity and just overstepping that's going on. And there was actually a bill passed. It could be federally, but it could also be Ontario. I can't quite remember. That says if a child at 3-4 years of age wants to go through a sex change and the parents are sane and don't want to allow it, the government has the right to step in and take your kid away from you.
Absolutely ridiculous. And the laws of not needing your parental consent in Canada, I believe, are 12 years old and older. So I know a lot of people who have just pulled their children out of school until this is over and are homeschooling. All of the elementary school students, so I think that's up to grade 8, they're being allowed to either choose in-class or online learning. So I believe a lot of people are choosing online learning, especially people against these jabs. As for the border crossing situation, so here's a good one. Davey and my father and his mother is a truck driver. So parents have been crossing the land border the entire pandemic, going to every state. My father even went into Mexico. This whole time, with absolutely no issues. My father is older. He was actually dying of septic shock and did not know, was still in California driving, came across the border and went to the hospital. He spent 4 months in the ICU on a ventilator. They tried to say, oh, it's COVID. That's the reason why he's on the vent. That's COVID. I said, no, it's not. He has sleep apnea and he's a bigger guy, so he just has problems breathing. I had to get him transferred to a hospital that was giving better care and fight with them the entire time, telling them it's not COVID because every test kept coming back negative and they still were not convinced. And I said, just because he just came back from America doesn't mean he has COVID. And the restrictions that are going on are ridiculous. Through 2020 and 2021, Canada has still been accepting flights that have COVID on it the entire time. I have the entire registry of all international flights coming into Canada for 2020, 2021 with COVID, and it is a long, long list. So before attacking the citizens who are unvaccinated for their own personal reasons, they should try actually stopping border control and people coming into our country with COVID, knowingly with COVID.
It's just a kick in the bag.
So now we're allowing Americans to come in because our tourism industry is falling to the wayside, and that is one of our biggest moneymakers in Canada. And so Trudeau's like, yes, let's let the Americans back in for the summer. We live in an area that borders America very closely, and a lot of Americans own houses in the Thousand Islands, where I'm from, and they have been bound and determined to get over here. And so Trudeau just let the border open, even though Biden's still not allowing us to go over there. So it's absolutely absurd and ridiculous the way they're treating visitors in our country over actual people who live here.
It's par for the course.
Yeah.
So, like our government, here's an example of our government's priorities. Our government has no problem sending, I think it was $20 million to Angola to help pay for abortion, and yet they take veterans to court all the time, veterans who lost limbs and have severe PTSD and can't work, and they just want their freaking benefits, and they get shut down and say, this is a quote from the Prime Minister, they're asking for more than we can give right now. Well, maybe if you didn't send all of our money overseas, maybe then we'd be able to look after our own.
He had $260-some odd billion in a bank account for veterans in 2020, did not spend a dime of it, and said veterans are asking more than we can give. Well, then why would you put that money aside for them and tell them during your campaign, your first and second campaign, that you were going to take care of them? But now you don't care about them at all, and you never have, and it's very obvious, considering he left 1,200 Canadians in Afghanistan and then went on the campaign trail instead of going to help them.
The Ukrainians had to come in and save us, for Christ's sake.
Disgusting.
Because, like, Lord knows Biden is completely inept as well, so the Yankees couldn't come help us. It was all down to Ukraine, and they got their own shit going on in Crimea, and they could still spare a couple of guys to come get our guys out, for crying out loud. It's just an insult. It's an insult. I'm so disgusted living in this country, and if the borders were open, it's like North Korea right now in here, because we just can't leave.
But anyone can come.
Anyone can come in, but we can't leave. I mean, if we want to move to, let's say, Montana, we can't. We can't. And we feel trapped.
But we can hop in my dad's transport and bring, vegetables down to America, no problem.
Just hypocrisy, doublespeak, it's just a freaking joke.
Is your dad's health okay?
Yeah, he is fully recovered. He's actually healthier than he was before. It was a miracle.
That's great news.
Yes.
Wow.
Right?
It's so overwhelming. Yeah, I mean, it really is.
It is.
You have to understand, again, for those of us that are awake here, we are paying attention to Canada and what's going on. We've always been paying attention again to Australia as well. I don't know of a single person here in the States who likes Justin Trudeau. Everybody hates him. In fact, I just heard some audio and put some audio on my Gab account today of him talking, and he's an absolute psychopath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
If you ask him a simple question, and it could be as simple as, Mr. Prime Minister, what color is your tie? And for him to give that answer, he couldn't get it.
No, he's pathological.
He reads the script. I mean, the UN's hand is so far up his ass, I'm surprised they're not working the lips for him when he's talking.
One of the things that I do on the podcast from time to time, again, is I try to see the landscape as clearly as I can, and I do whatever I can to make particular predictions, again, based on the scientific method, and if I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Where do you see this going? Are there any predictions that you can make about what's going on in Canada and what you see maybe coming here in the next 6 to 9 months?
Yes, okay. So, aside from the election, that I'd be surprised if Trudeau doesn't win because he's probably going to rig it similar to how Biden did. What do I see? Well, I see very bad things happening. I've been able to kind of predict lockdowns at least a month before they're going to happen, and I do believe we are going to have another lockdown coming in the fall. I can't say when, but I wouldn't be surprised if they targeted around the Thanksgiving holiday. Our Thanksgiving is in October. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do that, and I wouldn't be surprised if this time it's far more tyrannical. And
you mean like door-to-door visits?
Yeah, we can see that. It's likely going that way. So there's also a problem with the military is rumored to be being deployed this time around to police the lockdown, and so there's that. That's going to happen. The police are, because the way it works here is our police took an oath to actually defend the Constitution, and the military actually took their oath to do the bidding of the government and to the Queen in England, which is so ridiculous. Like, why we even associate with the Queen after this amount of time is just beyond me. And then we found out a really interesting fact. They are building, quote unquote, voluntary containment camps or quarantine camps in the far, far north of Ontario. I mean, remote. And they say it's for people who really can't afford to they can't self-isolate, or for homeless people. Yeah, okay.
How will they get there?
I really believe that. I really believe you won't be going door to door. It's bad enough. And about 3 months ago, we had to do a census here. And I was thinking, can we swear on the podcast?
Of course.
I was thinking, fuck that. I'm not doing the census. I could give a shit. Like, I don't really care. The government doesn't need to know any more about me than they already do. We had people coming to our door because we didn't do the census.
Because they want to know how many people in their house.
How many people in the house? Do they live here full time? And all this jazz. And I was thinking, okay, that's really none of your goddamn business, is it? And yet here we are. So I can only imagine that for vaccines and for the guns, it's only going to follow suit, that there are going to be men in suits coming to our door telling us, yeah, you need to get vaccinated. You need to do this. You got to turn in your guns. And let me tell you something. If it comes to that, you're going to see a lot of violence. Because there's not many gun owners up here, but the gun owners who do have them are freaking intense.
That's awesome.
And I will say, I find more and more people in Canada are waking up when their personal beliefs are being threatened. So for me, I was just going about life, pleading ignorance. It's not affecting me. Jamie and I spend most of our free time in the woods on our side-by-side, so we can still enjoy our hobbies without any issues. We both cook better than most restaurants, so we don't need those things. But when it came to them threatening my job, that's when it snapped for me, and I woke up. Trudeau just threatened people who have children. If they are putting their children's lives at risk because they are not vaccinated, then he will be dealing with it. So to me, that says that he's going to try and come after people's children. Well, if that starts happening, I think a lot more Canadians will be awake, because that is absolutely ridiculous. The vaccines in the clinical trials were harming more younger people than older people. So, and you can see it already. There was a report today on our actual mass media, which was surprising. 100 youths have already gone to the hospital because of the vaccine. So where I'm going with this is a lot more people are opening their eyes and waking up when their personal beliefs are threatened or their personal lifestyles are threatened. So as soon as they become more and more overreaching, then their people are waking up, which is fantastic to see, but it needs to happen in a lot fast.
Because to springboard off of that, because I believe the government isn't as dumb as they let on. I believe they actually know people are starting to wake up, which is why we're going to head towards this lockdown. Because once people are locked down, they're a lot easier to control. And as soon as they start doing that, well, then you're going to see military checkpoints for, essentially, you asked what's a prediction for Canada in the next 6 to 9 months. Yep. Australia.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen here. And people aren't waking up fast enough. And by the time people do wake up, it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
Because they didn't fight way back when the gun ban started. I've been following this, and I've been into, let's say, quote unquote conspiracy theories since 2012. I've really been following this shit for a long time. And to actually see it unfolding in front of me after the literal years of research I've done into this, all of this globalism, all of it, and people don't see it, it's so incredibly disturbing, words almost can't describe it. Because they are willfully allowing their freedom to just get thrown by the wayside because in the interest of the greater good. When has government ever proven that it can actually do something for the greater good? Everything the government touches, it fucks. It's unbelievable. I
see it on a daily basis at work.
If there was an actual real disaster, and I'll use this as a case study, if there was a legitimate real disaster that nobody saw coming and the government would not handle it, and the reason I say that is because look at how the United States government handled Hurricane Katrina. A real disaster that you didn't see it coming from a mile away. It was kind of upon you, and it was a bad freaking storm, and the government completely fumbled it. And yet somehow, for this pandemic, they've miraculously been able to manage it, been able to control the wave. Bullshit. It's because it was a plandemic, not a pandemic.
One of the sort of consenses, or if that's how you say that, that kind of exists among those of us that are awake here in the States, in particular with Australia, and I want to ask about your take regarding Canada, of course, is that one of the reasons that the police officers are going along with the tyrannical steps forward, so to speak, regarding the unlawful arrest or detainment of individuals in Australia is because the vast majority of the police officers over there are blackmailed, and that a great deal of the individuals who are in charge are actual criminals, and again blackmailed. Is that the consensus with Canadian police as well?
So there are about 25,000 Canadian police officers together in a group fighting for freedom. That's a pretty small number considering, but the fact that they're growing on a daily basis, there are some police officers who are awake, who are not putting up with this. There are Border Patrol agents who are not awake, and not putting up with this. RCMP officers. There's all different levels of police, obviously, here. So I feel like in Canada there are a lot more people who are not being bribed in the lower levels of police. In the higher levels of police, I 100% agree with that statement.
And the issue is, too, the level of corruption, bribery, and all of that stuff in the police force is so deep that you just, what do you do? Because the police officers who stand against this, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to get fired. And when that happens, well, who gets sent in? Well, the military does, which plays right into what I'm saying. The military will get deployed in Canada on Canadian soil to install a tyrannical, martial law on its population.
And after that, I see the UN stepping in.
Yeah, the UN is going to take control too, because apparently we've heard rumors that the UN is already in Australia, ready to move in on the city of Perth. We've heard that the UN is already staging in Wales, in the UK. And you heard about those 40-some-odd container ships that are somehow stranded off the coast of LA in the LA port?
Yes.
I wonder if that's all UN vehicles and stuff in there. Because it's only a matter of time before you see the blue hats starting to come around.
Yeah, there have already been pictures of UN vehicles in South Carolina, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that plays right into it. The world police.
The world police, the world government. This is such bullshit. And I really didn't sign up for crap.
Yeah, clearly none of us did, but we're here on purpose, and I think that's because we can fight back against this.
Right.
Let me ask you again. I want to go back to the jabs real quick and just get your perspective on a percentage breakdown of a few other avenues here. You mentioned the healthcare workers and where you thought that stood. What about police officers, professors, and teachers? What percentage do you think have been jabbed? And are they being forced to be jabbed?
I would say it's about 70 to 80% as well on all fronts. And I'll say yes to being forced, coerced, intimidated. They're being told they will lose their job. They're being told they will lose everything. I know of a hospital that sent out a hospital-wide email saying if you do not get your vaccine by such date, that you would be fired, and then included every single person's name in the email who was not vaccinated. This is highly against our Privacy Act in Canada. And instead, they just apologized. They just said, oops, sorry, my bad. Like Amy and I were saying before, everyone is brainwashed up here. Not very many people are awake. It's very scary. So I would say, yeah, 70 to 80% of all sectors are vaccinated. And if it wasn't because of their choice, it's now definitely becoming because they have no other way to make money and live and protect and feed their families, give them housing, things like that. So they're feeling like it's their only choice. And throughout the groups that I'm in, I have heard that so many times in the last 2 weeks, and it is devastating to see that they just feel like they have no choice and they have to give in because they're single mothers, single fathers. They don't have any other means of making money, and that I think plays right into it too. Trudeau wants us all living on his
basic
income that will cover everyone. We will all be citizens of the state. Then he can control exactly what happens to us, exactly what we buy, just like China is doing now. And it plays all into the exact same with the restaurants. If we close down our restaurants and our local businesses, that cuts off our local farm supplies, and that chain of having all these little farmers being able to give us food, then we have to go to the cities to get food and stand in food lines. It's definitely all intertwined.
It's communist. So when you actually take a step back and look at it from a huge, like a bird's eye view of the entire situation, even if we win this vaccine mandate thing and Stacy gets to keep her job and not get vaccinated, but when you look at everything else that's going on, the economic situation, how farmers are getting told to burn their crops up here and get rid of them and destroy them, it's very, very difficult to see a future that doesn't involve lots of spent breath and blood. Because we will not comply. We will not comply. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
What's that saying, you guys? What's that thing? You guys have fuck around and find out?
That's it.
Come knocking on my door. Come knocking on my door and see what happens. If you try and do that, I swear to God, I'll be the last face you see.
Yep. Fuck around and find out indeed.
Yep.
Clearly, I mean, you know exactly what's going on. There's no doubt that that what you've said is completely valuable, that your perspective matters 100% because you're on the ground right there. You're seeing it. You're neck deep in it.
Yep.
And again, I've been through the website. It's beautiful. There's a lot of valuable information without a doubt. And again, that's
Thank you.
fedsforfreedom.ca. I would encourage you guys to get on Gab and Telegram if you are, or you're not. I would encourage you to do that. There's a
I'm on Gab, but I just recently started like a Reddit forum directly on the website. That's not involved in Telegram, not involved in Signal or Gab. It's just directly on our website to try and keep people in the right spot.
I see that. That's very cool.
Yeah. Way forward right now is we're trying to do this lawsuit, above board, unlike our government. And if that fails, then we don't see any other way forward. Now, me and my team, my admin team is growing day to day, and we're now coming up with a mission statement. We're going to be contacting the mainstream media. We're going to be presenting ourselves as an alternative to our current union for people who want to be actually listened to and heard of. So we will be coming out with some more standardized and more written information about our group, because if not, they're going to turn it around on us and make us look like we are being aggressive. We are being, what is the word I'm looking for? Tyrannical, like they are, and things like that.
It's inflammatory.
Exactly. So we're trying to be very above board with everything, so they cannot attack us on things that we are not doing, if that makes sense. So I would look forward to coming back on your show after we get the whole situation figured out and I get my admin team set up.
I'll come back on anytime. I'm laid off right now, and it doesn't look like I'll be going back to work because I'm not getting the jab. And much like Stacy's union, our union is starting to they haven't come out with an official policy yet, but the rumblings around the job sites are that they will mandate vaccination to get back to work. So that's where I'm at, and it's not really fun because I'm not lazy. I do like working for my money. And I guess that's all we really have to say. Other than if anyone in Texas, Oklahoma, Montana needs a plumber, hey, or a graphic designer, please give us a call. Give us a work visa. Shit.
Yeah, we'll move to America. No problem.
We'd love to have you, but we don't want to watch your country destroy itself either.
Same.
Yeah, we're the same.
Well, again, I wish you all the best. God bless. And again, stay in touch. You've got my email. You've got my phone number now. Save the phone number. And let me know what's going on anytime.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.